Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew Davis, me once again. Welcome back to another movie review. Continuing on with my horror movie marathon, I'm going to be reviewing The Evil Dead. Not just this movie, but I'm also going to review the other movies in the series, including the remake. Directed by Sam Raimi, this was his directorial debut. He was actually in his early 20s when making this movie. He started off at the age of 20, and the movie was released around his 22nd birthday. Which is actually quite amazing because with a film like this, it would actually be really hard to believe that someone that young would make a movie this good. But they did, and they succeeded in every single way. And then later, he made a franchise that also succeeded in every possible way. Now, of course, The Evil Dead, before it became super groovy with all of its humor and classic one-liners, with its sequel, we got this. Basically, your regular cabin in the woods horror movie where a bunch of teenagers go to a cabin for, I guess, for vacation or just to go bum around. I don't know. But they're staying in a cabin, and two of the guys, of course, Bruce Campbell as Ash, finds the Necronomicon. And of course, they open it up, and it unleashes the Evil Dead. And a lot of crazy stuff happens to all these teenagers, and only Ash manages to get out alive. That is kind of spoiling, but hey, you know who Ash is, pretty much. So of course he would make it out alive in the end. A lot of stuff happens, especially to the girls, because, wow, the girls did not get off easy in this one. I mean, one gets raped by the woods, and one of them gets so insane that they just lock her in a basement. And a lot of other crazy stuff happens in this movie with all these crazy demons possessing these teens' bodies. And it's just absolutely fantastic. And it's a very well crafted and it's a very well made film that to this day I still think holds up. Even with the sequel being slightly better than this one, I still think to this day the first film is an absolute classic on every single note. 40 years later, it still holds up. And in my opinion, while Sam Raimi is also best known for the SpiderMan Trilogy, I love the SpiderMan Trilogy, at least the first two movies. Third movie, not so much, though. The best thing about that movie is the memes. And Spider-Man 2, I do think, is one of the best superhero movies of all time, but in my opinion, I've always preferred the Evil Dead trilogy, at least until I watched the Evil Dead trilogy when I was, like, in my teen years, because I didn't watch it when I was much younger. I guess it's because I'm more into the horror genre, and because this is an original series, and not based off of a comic book. It's something that Sam Raimi came up with his own mind, and managed to succeed at that. With the budget that he had, with the amount of blood and all the violence and all the makeup and designs that he was able to put into this movie, especially with that stop motion final act, like the stop motion with all the faces melting off. It was really just it just made it to get gross, and a lot grosser than the bloody murders in the movie, because honestly, when it comes to violence in movies, I think, just gruesome, like, pus and stuff is more disgusting than actual gore, because it's something that's very common to see in movies, at least movies like this. And with all the originality and the talent that Sam Raimi had behind this film, it was just so, like, I'm repeating myself over. You basically know what it is. Of course, Bruce Campbell as Ash. Unlike the other movies, Ash was more terrified and more of your typical teenager in this film trying to make it out alive. He didn't have that much one-liners in this movie, but that doesn't make him a bad character. I mean, he managed to survive. It's basically like how instead of the final girl in this movie, it's the final guy, because no girl makes it out alive in this movie. Spoiler alert. And Sam Raimi also has a combination of comedy in this movie as well. Though not as much comedy as later on in the series. I feel like the start of it is truly what kept it going later on. And usually the humor comes in with how the demons act. Like, they act like, of course, with Ash's girlfriend turning into a demon, he's just like, and then Ash just, like, bitch slaps her. It's insane. Like, Sam Raimi knew how to craft horror and comedy so well. But this is mostly horror, as Evil Dead 2 and 3, or Army of Darkness, had more of the horror in it. This one is mostly focused more on the horror, and it's kind of slow building. Like, after the first 20 minutes, like, it really picks up after the first 20 minutes or so. And it's an hour and 24, 25 minutes long, so it's not a very long movie as the pacing gets so much better. But that doesn't matter because the pacing and the build-up really pays off. And that's just something that Sam Raimi, well, I know I'm bringing up Sam Raimi a lot, but hey, this is his movie. He made this movie. This was the start of his career, and he pulled it off. And he still managed to know how to make horror years later when he directed Drag Me to Hell, which is another great one of his. And pretty much why Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness had so many horror elements in it, and why it got away with a lot more blood, shockingly. So, yeah, I mean, hell, Bruce Campbell made a cameo, so yeah. But in the end, guys, I don't know what there is more to say. This is a perfect start of one of my favorite horror movie franchises of all time. To this day, it still holds up with how small of a budget it took and with how young the director was. It is still very impressive. Like, I did not know he was so young when making this movie until, like, I don't know, earlier last year or earlier this year. But either way, it impressed me even more. And watching it today, it's still a fun time, and it's still a perfect horror film to watch. It's still just as creepy and just as bizarre as it always was, with its outrageous amounts of gore and all of its, crazy amounts of the stuff that the demons do. It's just insane, and I still consider it a classic to this day, undeniably. And I don't know what there is more to say. I enjoy popping this in every once in a while, just like the other two, and the remake as well. So yeah, I am going to be reviewing the other movies. I'm definitely going to rewatch them and then review them for you guys. So yeah, stick around for that. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Ward out.